When the first soldiers saw it, they didn't know whether to laugh or step back. 2 barrels, 2 magazines, no stock, no sights you could trust, and a sound that felt like fabric tearing apart. The Villar Perosa did not look like a weapon. It looked like a mistake. But that mistake would change the war and kill the men who carried it. In 1915, World War I was stuck. Movement was dead. Attacks died in machine gun fire before they even began. The front was no longer a line, but a system of graves, wire, and mud. Italy was fighting on one of the most unforgiving fronts of the war, the Alps. Rock, snow, narrow paths, positions carved directly into the mountains. Every attack went uphill. Every retreat went down. Heavy machine guns were too cumbersome, rifles too slow, grenades too short-ranged. The army needed something that could make firepower mobile, something that belonged to the first seconds of an attack. In 1915, engineer Abel Ravelli designed an automatic weapon for aircraft. It was never meant to be precise, only fast. 2 barrels to increase hit probability, a rate of fire that flooded space with bullets. But aircraft evolved faster than the technology, and the weapon was left behind, so it was sent to the front. The Villar Perosa was not a machine gun, not a pistol, not a rifle. It was something in between, and transitions are deadly in war. Each barrel fired more than 1,200 rounds per minute. Together, over 2,400. A magazine was empty before a man could even process that he was firing. The weapon had no stock, no real aiming, no traditional way to hold it. It was placed on sandbags, walls, rock ledges, fired from the hip, blind around corners, into spaces the gunner could not see. No one had trained for this, no one knew how to control it. But when it fired, it changed everything. The first use was a shock. Until then, an attack had followed a sequence. Grenade, jump, shot, reload. With the Villar Perosa, it became a moment, a sound, then silence. No one knew how long the attack would last. They only knew it had to be short. The men lay in the trench, waiting, while wire trembled in front of them and machine guns rattled somewhere in the fog. The Villar Perosa rested on sandbags, heavy, cold, unfamiliar. The carrier held it as if it might run away, while the second man counted the magazines. 1, 2, 3, there were no more. When the order came, the weapon lifted almost on its own. No aiming, no breath held, just pressure on the trigger, and the air tore apart. The burst was shorter than expected. 2 seconds, maybe 3, then the first magazine was empty. The sound stopped, and in that moment everything became dangerous. The second man ripped the magazine free, hands slick with mud, fingers too stiff to be fast. Seconds felt like minutes. The weapon was dead, and everyone knew it. In the opposing trench, movement began. Heads appeared, rifle barrels shifted, someone shouted. Before the second magazine was seated, fire came back. Bullets tore into the trench edge, stone splinters flew, earth fell from the walls. Then the Villar Perosa fired again, this time longer. The burst filled the space, knocked men down, sent others running. The attack was decided before it had truly begun. But in that moment, the position was revealed. The sound still hung in the air when the first shells landed. The carrier did not hear them, he only felt the pressure. When the smoke cleared, the trench was silent. The weapon was smoking, and the second man was dead. Survivors later described it not as a firefight, but as a rip in the air. Something that came, and then everything was over. But the weapon had a price, and its carriers paid it. The Villar Perosa was loud, shrill, unmistakable. In the narrow alpine positions, its rattling echoed through the rock. Machine guns shifted, snipers searched for movement. Grenades followed the sound. The weapon that opened the attack revealed its carrier in seconds. A crew usually consisted of 2 men. One fired, one reloaded. The rhythm was merciless. Fire, empty, change, fire, empty. During the reload, the weapon was dead. and the carrier visible. Many died in that exact moment. Not because of poor training, not because of bad luck, but because they were too effective. For the men who operated the Villar Perosa, the fight did not begin with the trigger. It began with the sound. Even before they fired, they knew they had been heard. The weapon's cadence cut through the noise of the battlefield. Machine guns sounded dull, rifles cracked, artillery rolled. But the Villar Perosa ripped the air open. And in doing so, it betrayed its carrier. In the Alps, that meant death on delay. Not maybe, not someday, soon. Snipers fired at shadows. Grenades were thrown at sounds. Artillery followed the direction of the rattle. Many crews did not survive their second mission. The weapon did not only destroy bodies, it destroyed something else. Soldiers avoided the men who carried it. Not out of cowardice, out of instinct. No one wanted to stand next to someone who drew all the fire. They made space, they looked away, they spoke less. Letters from the time describe how these men stopped talking about the future. They did not speak of going home, not of the end of the war, only of the next mission, or nothing at all. The Alpine front became the weapon's death laboratory. Rock amplified sound. Snow betrayed movement. Narrow paths prevented escape. Once a crew was discovered, there was no evasion, no reserve, no cover that truly protected them. Many were buried by artillery before they could even fire. The weapon had been built for spaces that did not exist there. And yet it did not disappear. Instead, something else began. The Italian shock troops, the Arditi, started to take the Villar Perosa apart. They separated the barrels, added stocks, reduced the rate of fire, made it mobile. They turned the mistake into an idea. For the first time, speed became controllable. For the first time, carriers survived, not many, but enough to learn. The weapon had not been wrong, only too early. In 1918, the Beretta M1918 appeared, a direct descendant of the Villar Perosa, a weapon that could be shouldered, a weapon that could move. The war had learned, not through planning, but through loss. Germany watched closely and developed the MP-18, the first true submachine gun in the world, not for trenches, but for movement. The idea of the Villar Perosa survived its own death. It traveled on, from Italy to Germany, from there to the world. Thompson, MP, Sten. All of them began with a weapon that came too early. After the war, the Villar Perosa vanished from units. It was too specialized, too loud, too uncontrollable, and too dangerous. But it had proven that infantry combat had to change. Firepower had to move. It had to be faster than the enemy, closer, more brutal. The men who carried it first did not live to see that change. They died between magazine changes in noise and chaos without knowing they held history in their hands. They were test subjects. Today, the Villar Perosa stands in museums, silent, behind glass, harmless. But in 1916, it was the loudest thing a man could carry. It made war faster and killed those who used it first. Today, it is called a flawed design. But that is wrong. It was not a mistake. It was a warning that every new weapon first kills its own soldiers. That innovation always costs blood, and that the next war always begins with the weapon. That arrived too early in the last one.